Hey guys, welcome back to CameraPro on the Couch. Tonight we're here with Dale Travers. So thanks so much for coming, Dale. We'll kick straight into it with a little bit of your backstory. So yeah, go for it.
Thanks for having me.
No worries.
So I started photography around 95, actually, on film.
Cool.
And my passion was, I was rollerblading at the time, so I was sort of jumping stairs and doing all the crazy stuff you do on handrails and things. And my dad actually gave me a camera and said, look, you're going to kill yourself, so let's take some photos of it first.
Okay.
So I actually started photographing back then on film. And used to go through a lot of rolls of film because with skating it's hit and miss. Like you can shoot a whole 30 roll and it's literally like one shot comes out of it.
Yeah, right.
So you learn pretty quick that you've got to get better at what you do. And yeah, started working with, and with skating it's very outdoors action. So straight away you've got to bring in some light. And yeah, started shooting, then I went to digital early. I think my first camera was the EOS 20.
Okay.
I think. And then yeah, started shooting on that, and then yeah, just kept shooting and skating and shooting and skating, and then yeah, started processing them digitally, and then saved up to buy my first flash. Actually ran a cable to my flashes back then,
Yeah,
so
right.
the skaters actually had to jump the cable to do the trick sometimes.
Yeah, right.
Because a lot of the technology back then had to be imported from the States, so you couldn't really get wireless triggers back then. And then yeah, did that for a really long time, shot through to about 2007, and then all the time I was an apprentice bookbinder and finisher. So I actually worked in a printing factory.
Okay.
So I was looking at magazines and stuff all the time, so I always wondered how these images got produced. So yeah, slowly saved up. I was on very minimal wage as an apprentice, so you save up for like months and months, and you get your lens and you do that, so you build all your equipment. And then in 2007 I moved to England, moved to London, and acquired some flashes, so I went on to wireless flashes then with Canon, and yeah, opened up a new world really, because with skating you can't really have wires running everywhere on a set of stairs or across the street or anything like that. So to have wireless flashes was amazing. And then you can start shaping your scene. You start telling the story of where the skater took off, the trick, and where they landed. So yeah, did a lot, basically travelled London, had a really bad job, but in that whole time, all the other times I was shooting, skating, going up and down the country, meeting new people, just shooting and shooting. You get to learn pretty quickly because the weather's not so good there all the time. So you could travel 2 hours on the train and then it rains. So you just turn around and go back home. So it's like, yeah, and then you start to learn light pretty quickly as well about what your flashes do, where to put them. And if you're shooting maybe 2 or 3 of these scenes a week, you get to know them pretty well. And then after that, I went to America for a couple of months and started working with professional rollerbladers, which is quite different because they'd have all their tricks locked and they knew what they needed to do, and they also had the planning started to come into it back then. So you went to, right, I've got this one spot, it's going to be really good at this time of day, we'll go there, I know the trick already, so it should take 20 minutes to get it done, and then you get it done, and realised that my photos are actually turning out a lot better than before, just because of the planning that we had, the pre-planning and the professionalism of us working together. So then I came back around 2012 and started realising that I had so much gear that I needed to sort of make a profession out of it. So I started to look into bigger studio flashes, and then I really wanted to start assisting for a lot of the photographers around town. So because I knew what I knew, but there's no money in rollerblading, and you can't make money off the photos that you're taking. You may get a magazine cover back then for maybe $200. And as we know, that doesn't really go far in photography. Or rent. So yeah, I started to realise that I needed to start shooting portraits and started trying to make it a career. And the whole time I was still working part-time at a printing factory. So I was working 5 days a week and then shooting on the weekends. And then I slowly started to tell everyone that I was doing photography and started shooting portraits and stuff. And then you slowly start to pick up little jobs here and there, and you ask for more days off here and there. And then, and then plus I was knocking on the door a lot of professional photographers back then to try and assist.
And you think that going down that assisting path is a good way to get into it?
Definitely. I think that's really, like, even these days with YouTube and all that, you will never learn more than you will assisting a professional photographer that's been doing it for 10 years, day in and day out.
Yeah, yeah.
I started learning a lot more, even just carrying light stands, putting like diagnosing light from here, there, and everywhere, and assisting as well teaches you so much about client interaction, because sometimes you do have clients on set, or you've got a brief that you get sent the night before or a week before, and it's a process then, it's a job, so you actually have to go through and hit those brief, like hit the mark on every bit of that brief, and if a client's there with you, you're actually on set then, you turn into like a set, so you've got deliverables, and you've got a client to please, and you've got all how they're going to use it and all sorts of things. So there's so much that goes in, and you never really learn any of that working by yourself.
Yeah, true.
And then assisted I got in with a company in Brisbane after I literally did it as a job resume. I got a little CV together, and I applied by email first, and then realising that wasn't really getting much response, I actually printed out a CV and sent it to a company that I was really interested in.
Yeah, cool.
And they said that out of like 100, like they actually advertised for a job as a second photographer. Yeah. And then they said out of 130 people that applied, you're the only one that sent in a physical booklet with your work in it. So that showed initiative. That showed like you go extra mile to do what you need to. Yep. And they didn't have the address listed on the internet to find through back ways how to find out where they actually were. And then after that I met them, and then they threw me into a shoot because the other photographer was quite busy and he had to go away, and they're like, right, we've got this one shoot, we'll be there to help you, we'll run you through everything. It was actually for South Bank Parklands with a celebrity chef.
Oh, cool.
For regional flavours.
Yeah,
so it's quite a big one.
Yeah.
I had the chef for literally 20 minutes and they had 2 junior chefs back then. They had the junior master chefs that were going on, so we had 3 of them. We had a shot list. I had a great team, like a person right over my shoulder sort of coaching me through it and telling me what I needed. It was all my equipment with lights and everything. And then each shot was like, let's confirm we're getting everything we need. So it's by the minute. And then you get thrown in the deep end quite fast.
Yeah, true.
And then from there, it kind of like, it was sort of like my proving ground a little bit. And then from there, I got along really well with the guys, and then their business was expanding from one main photographer, a production manager that was running the company, and they had a post-production artist as well. So they were really finding that the photographer was quite stretched at that point, and he was literally on jobs every other day, and it was too much to handle. So and then they were going in a really good direction, and then I started working for them part-time, and then I started winding back my full-time job and then working for them more and more. And then after like about 6 months, they just realised that I was really good on set and I'd do anything it took to get to get that job, because I wanted to be a full-time photographer no matter what. So I was there at 4 a.m. I carried everything I needed. I just let them handle the client side of it, and I just set up everything. So that was really, really good experience. Assisted for them for a couple of years, which was really good. And then as I started to learn the clients and learn to the business side and the client interaction and what was sitting behind the camera and actually delivering on an image, then they sort of trusted me a little bit to start doing little jobs, and so they started sending me out on my own. So it was kind of like an apprenticeship on itself. It was quite good. And then started shooting little events and things like that. And then every other day the lead photographer would be going through my images like homework and checking every one.
Wow.
And it's quite devastating when he tells you can do better for like a good couple of years. Like this is how you improve it. Like it was never in a mean way. It was more of like, this is what I would have done and how you can improve it next time.
I suppose that's what you do it for as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a training ground. Like for them to trust me to go out to shoot for one of their clients is quite dramatic. Like you're putting your whole business on the line. Yeah, true. So it's how you act, how you turn up on set, the images that you deliver, everything. It's their reputation. So just worked really hard. And then after a couple of years, I started to get more and more shoots, and then worked there for about 6 years. And then it was really good. I started to have shoots where I could control the pre-production with the client. I was on set. I had a couple of assistants myself. We'd have hair and makeup on some of them, some of the lifestyle shoots. And then you're the guy at the camera with 10 people standing behind you looking at what you're producing. Yeah, true. So there's a lot of pressure there. And we did that for a couple of years. And you just need to have that confidence to get the shots done in the time they needed. And then we started to move into time-lapse, because construction was quite large back then, like mining and all that. So the guys started developing time-lapse cameras, long-term time-lapse. So It moved to more into a construction role where I'd be going out on site, putting up 3 or 4 cameras on a certain site for a build, say a high-rise building.
Yep.
They would sit there for a few years on certain projects,
Yeah, wow.
which was good. Everything's monitored online.
Yeah.
And then after I'd do the manual labour side of it, like on top of buildings, up cranes and all sorts of things,
Yeah.
I'd like pick up the camera and start doing an interview with the production manager on site to see what they wanted, what they were producing, and they talked about the project and things like that.
Okay.
So the photography element sort of drifted a lot away from more of a hands-on element to construction element. And we started to move into video a lot more as well, because they wanted lots of 1-minute spots, and we had like time-lapse sliders and everything, like people were welding and making walls and building pools, and it wasn't too glamorous, but construction in Australia is really huge, so they've got great budgets.
Yeah.
And then, I basically did that for 2 solid years of being on a plane, flying out Monday morning and flying back Friday night.
Yeah, right.
It was pretty intense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just found that and it wasn't really, like I've always loved shooting rollerblading and sport, and my passion was always shooting sport and things. And when I always had time on the weekends, I would get one of my friends that would be into sport, and I'd grab them out, and it's like, right, here's sort of a shoot that I sort of see how we can promote your shoes or something. So I'd just be chipping away at that the whole way while I still had this full-time construction part.
So doing your like passion still at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, the passion was always there to do what I loved, but that's not the clients we had.
Yeah.
We weren't really a creative agency at that point. We were just, they had some really large clients, and it just happened to be around the time when the mining boom was on.
Yeah.
There were so many, so that's the way the business directed itself.
Yeah.
Which was fantastic. And then, after that, I sort of found that a bit too much after quite a while, and they sort of saw as well, like, you're on a plane every other day. Yeah. And it sounds like a glamorous job, but when you're carrying like 3 and 4 suitcases interstate like every week,
I can imagine.
it can get quite a lot.
Yeah.
So then I ended up leaving there, and then really found that I needed to move towards what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So it was really a huge experience, because I learnt all the fundamentals and everything that needed. It was like a really good apprenticeship, and the guy I worked under was amazing. His knowledge on the subjects of commercial photography was insane.
Yeah.
And just working in that environment as well, like we're always sitting around tables talking about jobs and creating. You just learn so much. And we also had a video guy there as well, which I learnt some video off, so I'll be sitting next to him. And then from there, I actually felt like I needed to move into something that I really wanted to do, because if I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, it's like all those corporate stuff is great, but then you really like, right, if I want to make a real go at this, I've got to push towards. So invested in a whole bunch of new equipment. Did a whole bunch of new, invested a lot of money into new equipment to basically set up, because if I end up getting one of those clients that we had in the last 8 years, I just needed to be able to do everything, needed to be able to perform. So, and then, started shooting all my mates doing sport, and then that sort of led into I just sort of looked into creative fields about people repairing bikes and mechanics and all the infrastructure around sport, and then sort of honed what I learnt from all what I'd learnt into like shooting sport. So that kind of developed a bit more, and then friends lead on to friends, and then this guy's got a small business, start with that up, and then it sort of led me to a bike mechanic, which I said, mate, I love what you do with bikes. You're one of the best in Brisbane. Let's shoot. I think you got to update your website. Let's do it. Like, I live just around the corner from him, so it's a good passion project for me. And then he's like, sounds good. And then he basically said, oh, look, I service Sarah Crowley's bike. And I'm like, oh, who's Sarah Crowley? And he's like, oh, she just came 3rd in the world. So I was like, okay, at long course triathlon. So I was like, okay, that sounds like a pretty good deal. And because she just hit the pinnacle of her career in that year, that she had so many sponsors and stuff, she just couldn't service. Like, she's a triathlete, she trains like 10 hours a day. When can you do videos? When can you do promo? So there's a lot of people wanting things from her, which she just couldn't do. So then we started working together, and I started to did a little promo video for her, and it's like, she found it quite refreshing that I knew exactly where to be, when to be, what we're going to produce before we even walk out the door. She'd never really had that before. It was all sort of ad hoc on the fly. It's like So I sort of had everything planned out, and then we knocked it on the head, and we got this beautiful video done. And then that's sort of like, she's like, all right, this guy's actually knows what he's doing. It takes less time for me to shoot with him, and we get twice as good a product than it is just to grab someone that's like in the sport that's got a camera.
Yeah, totally.
So and then we just started working together from then, and then it's sort of all the sponsors. I sort of saw all her sponsors as potential clients after that.
Yeah,
so
right.
She had 10 sponsors. I'm like, right, I want to be the main guy that shoots for all of those sponsors.
Yeah.
So Sarah opened the door up a lot with those sponsors and said, I'm starting to work with this new guy. And then even from there, it's been quite like, because they're global, like all the sponsors are quite global. They're not Australian based, so.
Yeah.
To get into with a global company is quite large to be their main photographer or videographer.
Yeah.
So just kept chipping away though. I'm like, we spent the first year basically showing what I can do. Like, this is my level of what I'm coming in at.
Yep.
We've got your product. We see as opportunity to shoot it better than what you've had done before.
Yep.
Let's take that product, create something new, and I'll give it to you. Just have it, you can have it. And then to see if they actually start to switch on, if you're good enough and they want to start using you. So we still did that quite a bit, and then some clients were picking us up saying, oh, we love this, can you do it for our brand? And then, from there we just kept working and kept pushing harder each time. And then the last couple of years have actually been on a 14-month trip overseas because we left in 2019, 2020 we left, and then a lot of for triathlon, a lot of the races and obviously events, everything shut down around the world. We went to America. America started to kickstart again a lot earlier than the rest of the world. So that was sort of my introduction into the whole scene, into that sort of triathlon market. And then we just started chatting. She introduced me to a lot of people over there and started to get me, like, being third in the world at that time. It opens up a lot of doors. If you're with her, it's literally like you're with her and you get introduced to everyone. And it just straight away you're on her level and everything. So that was quite good.
Pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah, and then end up staying overseas for 14 months because of the COVID quarantine issues back here.
Yeah, right.
Which was a lot of stress because we were doing a lot of moving around with passports and all sorts of things, visas and all sorts of things. But
so where did you spend your time? Did you go jump around or what?
We spent a lot of time in Utah. So a lot of work on my website at the moment is from Utah, which is an amazing landscape if you've ever been there. It's lots of red rock and amazing cliffs. And then we travel to Miami, Florida, all sort of around to the races, and we duck in and out of the country and stuff like that. But the whole time I'm literally like still creating a branding product for Sarah. So in the whole process of rebranding Sarah as an entity, we took all her sponsors, we made all really great images of them, we did portraits, we did everything to bring her up to the level that she was in the sport. So a lot of sports people nowadays, they often don't have time or the resources to bring their brand up to a certain level. And it became really apparent during COVID that people were losing sponsors. People weren't up to the level, and the sponsors were feeling the pressure because they had no races to get these photos from. And we were producing more than anyone else because we had the time. And at such a high level, it was quite good. And then that's sort of like the first year of working with Sarah, I really wanted to prove a point that I was shooting at this level and this is where I'm at. And then we travelled to Europe and Spain and all sorts of things. We stayed in Spain for 3 months.
Nice.
And then I sort of took advantage of a lot of those areas by going out on her rides with her and finding the biggest cliffs in the area and finding what really sells the place, because I work for a bit of tourism back here, and I realised, like, well, why would anyone want to look at these images from that point of view? And I know tourism wasn't huge back last year. No one could really travel. But we needed to gain a lot of image library things so we could start promoting ourselves to tourism and things like that. To avenues outside of the sport. So we could have a really good portfolio of showing, if any of the sponsors need anything, we'd just be like, oh, here's 3 images from like 3 weeks ago, it's done. So you don't have to worry about it, you don't have to interrupt any training to shoot them, you just get it done.
So good.
So, I mean, anybody in marketing knows the value of an image library. You just literally like, oh, we need something for this, we need something for this. And if we've got a huge bank of that, then it's less stress on the athlete. It's just out the door, it's done. So in our spare time, we'd be shooting more and more. And then, I came back to Australia at Christmas a couple of months ago.
Okay. And what's it like being back then? Does it feel weird or?
It's really good, actually. It's really good to be grounded and not travel for a couple of months, which is kind of the opposite of everybody else. So like,
Yeah.
I'm getting out of here.
Yeah, true.
But we're like, it's actually quite good to be grounded because, yeah, you know where everything is.
Yeah.
We're having it's a bit of an off season for triathlon during the start of the year. So people want images, but not many, like, they're not at a high level of training.
Yeah,
so
totally.
we can shoot things if we need them.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So yeah, and all my gear got quite battered during that.
Yeah, okay.
During that time as well, I broke a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So I came back to rebuild
Yeah.
and invest back into my business to have more better equipment and things like that.
Cool.
So and that brings us to us.
Yeah, and here we are. Awesome, what a story. I feel like as well, being in a commercial position that you're in like getting to that point is what everyone wants to get to, I think.
Yeah.
So I suppose going into that is there a way that you think, I know you've just told us your whole story, but I guess if you were to give a few pointers of how to get into a commercial photography position, what do you think that would be?
I'd try and go the assisting route as much as I could. I'd definitely recommend that because you can learn so much from a photographer that's doing it day in, day out.
Yeah.
I always thought I was a lot better than I was, but then you get on a set where you're just learning from someone with like 30 years experience and you're like, I don't understand what's actually coming out of his mouth, but I take it all in and I want to learn more. So assisting hands down in a commercial role, if you've got the opportunity to assist, and working with a crew as well is really good. So as you start expanding, you work out as other assistants as well. Like in America, there's professional assistants and you got the movie scene, which all have grip gear and all sorts of things. So there are professional guys out there that just light scenes and carry around all the stands and everything for you, and they just ask you where to light and things like that. So just being in that environment, it really just turns your brain onto where you've got to be, when you've got to be, and how the product that you've got to produce in that little box that you send to the client. Yeah. So yeah, assisting is definitely the way to go, I think.
Yeah, okay. And I guess going into that, you've worked on a lot of scenes, obviously. Then is it always working with a creative director, or like is there always different people involved, or
it actually depends on the level of client, because sometimes you can be just a one-man band where you go there's different levels. There's literally like you almost start at like event coverage, so there's events that go on and just you with all your gear and they just want event coverage, so you go around and create those little moments with patrons and the branding and the signage and things, and then as you move on to, it steps up a little bit, like then it kind of goes to like professional event coverage, where you have an assistant where you're at a bar and people are literally just having a drink and you ask them, they're in the venue that you're shooting and you ask them, can we get a couple of shots of you guys? And you bring in a light and then you do a couple of things and you go, thanks very much, you get their signatures and you move on. And then it can escalate up to like a couple of models at a cafe, then even further where you've got like one scene which you're lighting. And it can vary as well, like mining, construction, you literally out there with just the marketing director with you all day, like 12 hours a day on the ground with all your gear. I used to go to Sydney every every month and do 12 hours underground in the tunnels and then 12 hours overground on the side. So then you got to look at all sorts of safety when you shoot things and all sorts of things on that. But it's sometimes can just be you and the client working together. And then it starts to build, like I think, the advertising side of it comes into it when you need a polished product, so you need lights and you need everything, and then more people come on board, like hair, makeup and all those kind of things. And then the client is standing there and they are looking at the image that are actually coming in every time, and they're like, we need to tweak this, can you flick her hair here and all sorts of things. So it can go quite up to a real high level. And
so I guess on that, depending on the size of the project, but is that how long would your general like project or clients that you need take for you to finish, I guess? Like how long?
It's usually all planned in the process of like all the planning. So you could spend, if you had a hero shot, say I did that shot with the chef, you have 5 minutes with him, but you've got 2 hours prep time. Right. And then that's usually the way. So it's like we've got the chef, like a lot of it was through South Bank marketing, so they had regional flavours. So I had a couple of celebrity chefs I had to, and then you walk out with all your gear, you set it all up, and you have an assistant standing there, and then you just sit there and you get everything perfect, and then you just wait. And then they're like, they come in, they're like, right, let's do it. Then they tell you to look here. I've had one of the chefs off MasterChef, and he came in, he's like, complete professional. He actually ran the shoot, which is quite unusual. He's like, all right, I'm going to smile in about 10 different ways. I'm going to do all this, and you just press the button. Right. So I was like, well, he's a lot bigger than me, so I'm going to let him do it, and then
yeah.
see if I get the result that I want.
Yeah.
And then I'll let him know that if that all worked, great.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get 5 minutes, sometimes you get a bit longer.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, some of those shoots can be pretty quick in and out, but a lot of it, I find at that kind of level, it can be sometimes weeks in the planning.
Yeah, right.
And things can change, but one thing I learned a lot from is literally it's all in the planning. Like everything can happen for that couple of seconds or a couple of minutes, and if you walk away with that image, it's usually, that's the last step of the long line of planning to get into it.
Yeah, right. And I guess moving a little bit away back to your sporting passion, I guess, where it began, if there was any pointers for people interested in sport or that kind of avenue, what do you think you'd say, I guess, to get into it?
Oh, look, shoot what you love, I think. Yeah, so if you love running, go shoot people that run. If you love football. Yeah, so that's basically, that's the way to do it. Shoot, because if you're gonna be out there lying in the dirt for like a couple of hours or whatever it is, you're gonna have to you're gonna really want to shoot that image. And some places we hike to for hours just to get that one shot on top of a mountain or something.
True.
So if you love nature, that's kind of where you want to go, and then like motorsport as well can take you there. And it can be very rewarding.
Yeah, and I guess if you're shooting what you love, then it's always going to be pretty rewarding.
You can really, the drive I think comes out of you when you are shooting that one spot, because I think in a lot of photography, I noticed early on is the hardest part that I found is controlling what's in front of you, because I find it a lot more in the sport that I'm in now. Actually, a lot of the athletes say like, this is what I'm going to do, and you just take photos of it. And then I usually, in early discussions, I say, no, this is what I want you to do, and this is how we're going to shoot it. Because sometimes they come to me for that product, and they've never really had that experience of like, because they're usually really global athletes are really short on time, so they don't have time to worry about it, and they don't know much about it, so they're like, I'm just going to ride past and you press the button. And it's like, well, no, this is this is how I do it. If you want this shot for your website, this is how we do it, and you'll be happy with the results, but just trust me. So there's a lot of trust back and forth with a lot of people at a time.
Because they wouldn't understand that that's how it actually happens.
No, and it's like, it's all in preparation, and I plan everything out. So it could be 5 minutes right there and then, but it's probably the best shot they'll ever have for their website. So it means a lot more.
Yeah, right. And so I guess in your eyes overall, what do you think is like the key thing to a commercial image, or what makes a really good commercial image?
It's telling a story and selling the product in its environment. Obviously you get the basic product shots with studio like black background, whatever it is. But I think for me is getting that product in its environment for what it's intended. So like a cycling shoe is like, it's great looking at it, all beautiful and everything, but that's not how people use it. They use it in high-end races, and it could be anything. It could be backpacks or clothing, whatever it is. So I always try and bring in a production value and try and recreate that exact scene that you'd see that product in, but bring it commercially. So you're not just out there pressing the button. You actually like, all right, we need to light the shoe this way. We need to set the scene. It needs to be in, like, it needs to tell that story of what the person that made the shoe had intended by, I think.
But in where it's meant to be used.
Yeah, exactly. The actual intent, it was meant to be used.
Yeah, right.
Because you can create that. It just takes a lot more knowledge and a lot more pre-production to get that, make that happen.
Yeah, right.
So
cool. And let us talk a little bit about gear. So I guess what camera do you use? We'll start with that. Camera and lenses.
So my main camera for the last couple of years has been the Canon 1DX Mark II. It's built like a tank. It's only 20 megapixel or something, but it has never failed on me. The batteries last all day. It's built like a tank. You can drop it. It's basically built for the environment that I work in, a lot of like lying down in the dirt or on the ground or anything like that. So I went with that camera as a good base for what I needed for photography. Basically because we used a few of them back in my old job. So it was something I knew. Something it's a lot heavy, but it's a real heavy rig that you can actually hold onto, and it's like really strong. And then for this last week, I picked up a Canon R5.
Cool.
So I haven't actually shot a photo on it yet.
Okay.
But it's the first mirrorless camera I've ever owned.
Cool.
I actually bought that just to shoot video on.
Okay.
Even though I will use it for photo because the megapixel on that thing's like massive. But it is mainly to have an option to move into, slowly make my way into mirrorless.
Yeah, right.
And because it is a lighter form factor and less moving parts, less breaking things.
Yep.
It does feel like a little bit of a toy.
In comparison to
In
what
comparison,
you used to.
yeah, in comparison to 1DXs.
Yeah.
But the brain in it's huge,
Yeah.
and the I mean the 1DX Mark II, when I bought it brand new, it was already 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah, right.
So I needed to move into the new technology. So like a 45 megapixels is fantastic because I'm starting to shoot some real high-end work overseas that they need that resolution for putting on billboards and banners and things like that, which is great.
Yep.
Which is the 1DX just can't handle that kind of file size.
And what about lenses? What's your main sort of lens setup?
So I've got the 3 standard lenses I've been using for a really long time. It's a 16 to 35, 2.8.
Yep.
And that's basically a lot of the running. I use that lens a lot to tell the story of a cyclist coming up a hill, so you actually get the view, a runner coming through a scene, and it really spreads the scene and tells the story, and also allows a lot of room for advertising around the runner, so there's spare space. Yep. 51.2 has been, I've had that lens for 10 years and it's absolutely amazing. The quality out of it's amazing. And 7200 2.8. I've got the old version at the moment, pretty old, but the quality, I'm still noticing the quality is spot on. Like in any environment, the focus is dead on.
Yeah, cool.
It's been run over by a car. I've dropped it a few times. That's built like a tank as well. It's never really. You might break a filter or something when you drop it every now and again, but the lens is solid. Solid steel. So.
Nice.
That's camera-wise. I've also got a 24 tilt shift that I've used for a lot of architectural work. Yep. So I find that's really good for panos and keeping all the lines straight. Yeah. And and tilt shift as well. So you can get an effect out of it by moving the focal point and things like that. So. And
then obviously lighting is very important.
So I moved into pretty heavy lighting straight off the bat. Profoto B1Xs. Yep. Because they were. I used a lot of Profoto D1s, but they are all powered, so you'd have to take around power packs. And I shoot on location quite a bit. They were a no-brainer. Like literally the battery packs, you buy extra batteries, just swap them out. 500 watts is quite a lot of power. If you put the reflector on the front that amplifies it even more, so full sunlight.
Like the zoom reflector.
Yeah, the zoom reflector. So you can actually pump out a bit more than that. Cool. And the high sync speed these days is insane because I could never, back in the day, you couldn't shoot past 2/50th of a second. And with skating, I'd always have like the black line of the shutter.
Oh, yeah.
So you couldn't really shoot faster than that. But I mean, it's just any speed. And you can cut the sky down, you can light the scene, any scene. So now I've got four of those, 4 B1Xs, and the B10s, I've bought a few little ones as well because they're quite small. They don't pack as much punch, 250 watt, but you can stack 2 of them together, or sometimes you just need a lot less power than the D1X, than the one B1X on minimum power. So sometimes you need a little bit of a spot somewhere, so it's quite versatile. So, so some of my portrait setups can be up to 6 lights in the studio. Wow. So, and then extra batteries for the flashes as well. So.
Cool.
So that's lighting, plus all little scrims and things like that as well.
And like modifiers, like what's the main modifiers you usually use?
So with a lot of the sport, it's the zoom reflector outside. You don't want to look at too studio-based. When you're trying to, it's kind of weird because in a scene where someone's running through, you kind of want to introduce light, but you don't want it to be too artificial and too stylized. So you want to show that there's light there, but it's not like, oh, he's actually put a flash to the right. So so the zoom reflector is quite good and quite small and compact. With a lot of portraiture, it's usually soft. So I've actually got a portable beauty dish from Profoto. Cool. It's everything's got to be quite small the way I go now because we travelled with 10 bags when we came back to Australia, like 2 bikes, all my modifiers, all my flashes. So you've got to be quite small. So I downgraded a lot of the modifiers before I left. All the little small soft boxes, all the collapsible ones, they're quite easy to shove in the side of a backpack. Cool. The OCF range from Profoto.
Good one.
And then a couple of one big octabox just in case I need it, and then scrims and reflectors and stuff like that. So
the whole shebang.
I've also got the Manfrotto light stands that fold together because they actually 3 stands can take up quite a small amount
Oh,
in your
because they
bag.
stack quite nicely together.
Yeah, so I actually shove most of the large modifiers into my bike bag when I travel.
Oh, yeah.
So I wrap them all up in like bubble wrap and everything. So that's actually quite good because you can fit like a large umbrella that's usually like this long into, you can travel with it because the bike bag's quite large.
Yeah,
so
right.
it's actually been really good. So I shove all them in there and fill it up. But
Cool. Whatever works.
yeah, because sometimes you travel with that kind of gear and you actually need large Pelican cases and all sorts of things. So it's quite a large bag to work on.
Yeah,
so that's cool.
And in terms of your lighting setup, we'll talk a little bit about how you kind of do your thing, and you've brought a few examples along. So you definitely would be preparing your lighting setups before you get on location, right?
Definitely. So usually the process involved in lighting a scene is a location scout. First starts off with location scout. If I do have the chance to scout somewhere first, that's usually best, so I know what I'm working on the day. And then, so I use an app called Sunseeker that tells me exactly where the sun's going to be at a certain time, and then I can almost play the scene out on my phone before I have anyone there. And then I usually pick one sort of location, and then we've got options around there where I can pick up a few. So if we're doing a shoe promo, we look for that big hero shot, and then we sort of move to, we got a couple of more pickup shots sort of here, so around the place.
And we had a question come in from the audience about location scouting. So do you just go out and how do you start going about that, sourcing your locations?
So commercially, it usually starts with a conversation with the client.
Okay.
So I look at the branding and what they have produced in the past. So each sort of brand has their own style and little niches of what they want, whether it's sun flares or dark and moody or shadows or all sorts of things. So if one of the things I learned early on is commercial photography, if you can pull apart a lighting scene and know how the photographer shot it, it's usually the first step on knowing how to relight it. So I did it years and years of just like, looking at photos and be like, right, I think he had a flash here, there's light on the face here, how does he do it? And because back then no one really put behind the scenes photos up, so you have to pull apart scenes, and movie scenes as well is fantastic for it because they've got way bigger budgets, so it's like how did they get that rim light on the side of his head, or light this and light that, and the background. So it starts off with the brand has a style, and then from there you chat to them about what they want to produce on the next one, and whether they want to continue that style or they want to mix it up and shoot something completely different. And that usually determines the art direction for which they want to go. And then from there you can show them examples and you can chat backwards and forwards about what they want to produce, and it's usually a team effort from everyone involved. And then the location could be, I want to shoot at a castle and I want this kind of art direction. So that's and then you go, all right, I'll have to find a castle. Like sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. And we want to say you're an Australian brand, you want to throw a European feel into it, you'd shoot a castle from Europe. Or where a brand right now is, we want to show more Australian because a lot of the marketing does come from America, and we want to show more Australian. So show us an Australian scene with like the gum trees or all that classic. So they know, so people in this country can identify with that brand. That's like, not just an American image, it's an Australian image, and I can connect with that.
I see.
So that all goes into the thought process of pre-production. So way before you even pick up a camera or scout, it's usually the discussion comes first. And then that can determine exactly what the end shot's going to look like. So it's a team effort with you and the person you're chatting with. And then you can use that, find out what they want, and then sort of you can work out what you think they need. So that can sort of go, you can move to different locations and say, I think this is really good. And sometimes they really take that input on board. They love you. That's the professionalism involved. It's like, well, I know what you think you need, or you're telling me what you need. This is our options. Then from there we can go even bigger and let's shoot here. What do you think about this location? So it's a back and forth. Some clients go, that's amazing, let's do it there. Or they said, no, we'll do maybe for next time, but we'll stick to this one for this time. So, so that's all part of the scouting process.
And obviously all of that, someone just asked about your pre-production planning and how that goes about it, so that's pretty much what you've just said. That there's a lot that goes into it before you even step foot on a...
I think I spend more time these days in pre-production than sometimes shooting. Some days can be 3 or 4 weeks backwards and forwards with emails, and then that's usually how I like, because then there's no surprises. It's like that the client gets exactly what they want, how they want it and when they want it, and then there's no surprises. So that's usually what we've always worked on, no surprises.
Well, that's what you want, hey? So then going back into the lighting, how you would set up your lighting process here, what's kind of your main steps that you would go into before we get to this picture here?
So I'd actually, the scout comes first.
Yep.
The sun's going to come through. This is exactly where I want it, and this is where I exactly want the runner to come through.
Yep.
Then from there, we've got to focus on the product that we're shooting. Everything in that frame tells a story. So it's things that need to get excluded and included, and everything tells the journey of where that product's got to go and how it's done. So lighting the product's quite important.
Yep.
It's in a huge running scene, the product, say I'm shooting for a shoe company here, they make the shoes, the shirt, the shorts, and that's only quite a small percentage of the 100% of that image. It looks literally like 5 or 10% of that shot. So that needs to be lit quite well. So you need to make sure the product that they're selling is quite lit. And then lighting it in a fashion that doesn't look, for me anyway, too overlit.
Yeah, yeah.
So with most runners and most cyclists and anyone really, the face is usually, the engagement rate of having a face in a commercial product scene skyrockets. So if you've got someone's face, the percentage is insane. It goes up quite a bit.
Yeah, right.
So a product is only a product. It can be brought to life with lighting and art and all sorts of other things, but if a face is in it, then someone can relate to that. It's like, oh, maybe I want to run in that shoe, or I want to use that bike.
Yeah.
So the face is quite important. So I always try and keep the face quite lit in certain ways. So, and in some instances, early morning, you don't really want to completely barrage it with heaps of lighting. You kind of want to bring in that early morning feel and try and sell that beautiful, with running especially, early morning runs. Everyone loves an early morning run, or most people do. You do, for sure.
Yeah, of course.
So, I mean, having that early morning feel really brings the aspirational feel in it too. Like you want to be out in this, like, it gives a bit of an adventure to it. Like wake up early, go for a run. And in this instance, that kind of works. Yeah. And also the light is better in early morning and late afternoon. A low light with long shadows is always going to be better than high sun straight down. So, yeah. Okay.
And so in this image, how many lights are there that you've used?
So in this one was quite simple. It was actually just one light.
Okay. Cool.
Because I really didn't want to bring in too much artificial into, like, it's cobbles. It's like an old castle. It's a beautiful scene that you'd almost see someone riding a dragon in the background. Like it's kind of cool in that way.
Nice.
We're lucky enough we shot this in Spain.
Okay.
And it was literally 20 minutes down the road. So like it's from here to the city away, and you're like, wow, there's an old castle. It's like years and years old. But
crazy.
It sort of set the scene for me in sort of presenting the shoe in a different light. And for Europeans, this is every day. Like this is a tourist town. People go there and just every day they have coffee there and stuff like that. So for us, it looks quite medieval, but for them it's like, well, it's just a castle down the road. Yeah. So it's like nothing. So I wanted to tell a story of the athlete going for an early morning run and the adventure that some people can go on when you go for a run. Sometimes if you're in a new town, the best way to see the town and the surroundings is just going for a run, and you can circumnavigate the whole town within a couple of hours. Yeah, true. It's faster than walking on sightseeing if you're a runner, or bikes usually works quite well too. So. So yeah, for this one, it was a launch for a new shoe, and it was one light. So one light from the right, ProPhoto B1X on a zoom reflector to light up the front, to rim light her legs, the shoe, her face, and a little bit of separation. The actual separation comes from the sun in the background. Yeah, nice. So it pops her out from the wall. I mean, I could go into a lighting diagram if we're looking at it. Yeah, we may as well. So I've got a lighting diagram here. Yeah, cool. So you can see from that, it's there's sort of a lot going into that image, which I calculate pretty much in the location scout. You've got the leading lines coming in under her feet, which draws the eye in from the right-hand side. Yeah. The ProPhoto from the right to light up her face. Trying to keep the athlete's head up, so it's still aspirational, because everyone knows at the end of a run you're not really running as good as you. So, and working with Sarah quite a lot now, she's got that sort of, we call it like a photo run. It's quite strong. She doesn't take too many steps, but she knows how to run and where to put her hands and everything. Yeah, right. And the sunlight coming in from the back really makes that early morning aspirational feeling. And the great thing about commercial photography is you can basically cater an image to whatever you want. Nothing needs to be real. Everything, you can make a scene Like I could have, obviously putting a dragon in the background is quite wrong, but those birds weren't there.
Yeah.
They're fake birds, so they're not
go.
there. But there were lots of birds around, but
Okay.
just not in that exact frame. The birds weren't there.
Oh.
So the thing that I love about it is telling the story.
Yeah.
And I mean, even that sun's fake. So the actual sun coming through there was there. The sky and the floor and everything's all lit up. But when you shoot sun coming into the camera, it can blow out quite, like everyone's shot into the sun before.
Yeah.
You just get a flare.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
for that flare to come through that part of the tunnel or that gate, would have blown out that whole gate and would have lost all
Yeah,
detail.
wow.
So
Yeah.
I learned early on that you can sort of hide behind a wall or something just to give the impression that the sun's there, and then you can drop a sun in post-production.
Yeah, nice.
Because everything's great when you're looking at it with your eyes, but when it comes through a sensor of a camera, it can just do things that cameras can't think as well as our brains. So, so as long as you can cater for that factor and you know what you're doing, then you can bring it back in post-production and tell that story. So
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
It's a good little breakdown there.
yeah.
And so you have another example, I think, of more of a behind the scenes of a cycling. Yeah, cool. Let's talk about this one.
Okay, yeah. So this is in Spain again. It was for the shoes that Sarah's sponsored by. So these shoes literally sell for like 300 to 400 euro. Their marketing is amazing. They're hand built. They're all carbon. They're one of the best shoes in the world. And I actually love what they do with their marketing. But the way they sell the shoes is very clean, very beautiful, but they don't have many shoes in the scene, like what the shoes are actually made for on the bike. So yeah, we got a new set, actually world championship shoes. So all multicolored for world champions.
Cool.
And I'm like, right, well, I want to go out and shoot a photo as if I was seeing the shoe in the wild.
Yeah.
So this is a behind the scenes photo. Sarah's actually standing there holding onto a chair. We've got a reflector underneath the shoe to bounce a bit of light coming up. We've got on the far right, we've got the softbox to throw a bit of light down onto her ankle and her leg and the bike. And we've also got a light further down the road emulating the sun. So it lights the top of the shoe like a rim light.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, that's basically the whole thing. And then obviously she's clipped in so she could fall over any time. So we brought a chair along. And that's how I scouted this road beforehand, and I needed I specifically needed the sun where I wanted it.
Yeah, right.
So I knew at the time of day, the sun is exactly where I need it, so it doesn't blow out the product. And then yeah, that's how we started. That's a behind the scenes photo. And then there's another behind the scenes photo of us just after I shot it. So that's, as you can see, the light spread a bit more. So you've got the octabox as a fill from overhead. You've got the hard light down the road a little bit, and the reflector from underneath. And then from there, this is the finished photo. So
pretty cool.
You can see from that, the shoe that we're actually selling is dead center of frame. It's quite large in the frame.
Yep.
It's retouched quite well, so they're actually brand new shoes. Bringing out the logo on the shoe, the construction and everything around the heel, the little boas that you lock a cycling shoe up with, the colours, and then you've got the scene of where she's going down the road. So her upper body is actually in full position and on a TT bike, so that's how they use their bikes mostly, on a TT position. I had the chair on this one off to the left because you can see the bike is on a bit of a lean to the left of the frame.
Yep.
So I actually wanted to do more of a lean, but you can only go so far without the chair slipping out.
Yep.
And so I tilted the horizon a little bit too, just to show that a bit of emphasis on the... And then, so yeah, from there we went, I made sure I got all the images. You can see, I'm not sure if you can see, but here's the rim light from the light that was here, that's been photoshopped out. The reflector from underneath actually lights up these logos here. Yep. And then the soft light coming in from the back is lighting up the rest of the top.
Yeah, nice.
And then everything else is actually blurred in post-production.
Okay.
So you've got to create, she actually just stood there and that's how we shot the photo. But there's no other way, this is what I love about commercial photography, there's absolutely no other way you could shoot that photo to that high quality standard. Because you can't run behind someone and just press the button, you just can't do it.
No.
So there are options to sort of do that, but to create the
degree.
scene for product photography, it really needs to be lit. Like you need some production value. They're selling this shoe for quite a lot, so someone needs to look at this product and say, well, I want this shoe, it looks beautiful. So,
and that photo does it. So
yeah, I mean, that's kind of the end goal, right? You need to be able to sell the product.
Yeah. That's a pretty awesome example. I think as well, not like viewing this and then seeing the behind the scenes, no one would have expected that's how you've taken it.
A lot of people ask me how I even shot it.
Yeah.
Because there are, like, it's the same with car photography. I learned a lot of that same techniques from car photography. There's not many times when you light and shoot a car that it's actually moving. So they bring in a rig and they light it, and then they lift the car up and they spin the tires to get the tire spinning side of it. And sometimes that's the only way you can really do it. So.
Yeah, cool. And I guess just going into the post-production side of things then, because you do a lot of that, you obviously do that all yourself. You don't have anyone else you rely on?
I worked really closely in my old job with a post-production artist. That was absolutely amazing. So if anything gets to a level or I don't have time to work on it myself, I definitely palm it off to him. There's guys that specialise in post-production and they're a lot better at it than I'll ever be. A lot of the time I do it myself, learning techniques from him when I worked with him, and it all comes down to like the pre-production about what they want to produce. So sometimes it can be they want to create a scene that's sort of like so much post-production, everything's laid up in post-production, then it's over my head, so I quote on for someone that's way better than I do to do it. But a lot of these scenes, they're pretty straightforward, like putting in suns, dropping in skies, cleaning up products. Because I guess you do a lot of it with your lighting during, so that's why. If you can get as much in camera as possible, that's definitely the way to go. I mean, that shot there, I'd say 2 hours. So we sat there for about 2 hours from start to finish. It wasn't, I sort of grouped it together. So that shot, not only did we do the shoe, we did the pedal, which is a different sponsor. We did the crank and the chain, which is another different sponsor. She actually has her own sock, which we did another version of her with the sock on. And did you, someone asked the question just before about, did you block the road off or how did you get this? This was lucky enough. In Spain, there's lots of roads in farms with no one around. I did park the car behind us, so so no one can actually hit us. And have the hazards on. If anything gets anything larger than working with one person on an outback road, it's usually you have to get permits, and then you wear high-vis vests, and you actually say photo shoot in progress, and you can put up witches hats. Like a lot of the car shoots do that because the cars are so big, they actually take up half the road. But this is a pretty small crew. It's just me and Sarah and the car, so no blocking roads off this one. Right. And so is this the sock image? So for this one, I went out a bit further, and she's got her own sock now. So we've got that. We worked on the sock here around this area, so that's her own personal sock. And she's sponsored by a sock, shoe, seat, bike, chain, everything. So that's kind of all encompassing. But the focus was the sock. So if you can see here, I've got a lot of blur coming through here to show a lot of impact and a lot of pushing forward. The chain's blurred, the wheels blurred in a different direction. But the most thing that your attention sort of gets drawn to the sock. Definitely. And then there's the one there for the pedal. So this pedal is a different company again. So you can actually, all these people put thousands and thousands of dollars into these products. So for me to spend 2 or 3 hours shooting that one product to make it as beautiful as possible, it's really in their budgets to do that. And everything around her whole foot and the cleat, and this is all part of the products that they sell. So we linked all that together. So I produced probably 10 images from that shoot, but they're all very targeted. Like it's like we don't need anything else. We just need a beautiful shot of the pedal, or the shoe and the sock, and something like that. So cool. I guess moving a little bit away from this and more about you, what do you think is one of the biggest things you've learned from being in this industry? Maybe about yourself or working with other people? Personality comes needs to be quite a lot needs to be apparent with communication. It's visual communication, so you need to be able to sit down with, say, if you were the client, need to be able to talk to you about what you do, how you do, and know about your product as what your job is within that company, and then translate that across to an image. So I think being a little bit more out, like you do learn it over time. Like I was always scared on those first couple of shoots, like, oh my God, like all this pressure on me or whatever, and talking to people. But I think it all comes down to knowledge. Like they're coming to you because of your knowledge. And if you can communicate that well to make them feel comfortable it's their job on the line. Sometimes it's their job on the line. So they've got to impress their boss. So it's their job on the line. So if you need to be able to communicate across that really well. So personality wise, it's quite a big thing, and communication I think is the main.
Yeah, and I guess you learn a lot about how you interact with other people as well during that time, I guess.
Definitely,
along the journey.
Yeah, some people, you get into some hairy situations where they throw some curveballs on set, and if they feel the pressure of their job and what you're doing is not what they want, they sometimes can lash out.
Yeah.
And you've just got to keep a cool head and work through it, and then everybody's happy at the end of the day. That's the main thing.
Go with the waves.
But you've got to really be fluid on these suits. Like often it's like in America maybe there's a couple of people that are very opinionated and very do what they do, but it's very different in America. The budgets are bigger. They hire people specifically for that one skill set, and they'll do whatever it takes for that one person to shoot their product because they're amazing. Like especially fashion, they do it. I'm going to hire this one guy and he's the best at it. I don't care what he says. I'll just give it to him. Whatever.
Yeah, so there's a lot at stake. If someone
there is a lot at stake. But I think in Australia, it's these days the amount of people with cameras and the skill level, they can literally just go to someone else. So you need to. I always try and make really long-term relationships with the clients because they become friends. They trust you, and that rapport back and forth usually works really well on a shoot. And then they just say, just do what you did last time. It was great. Okay. And then it's easy for them. They don't have to worry about it. They've got other million things they can deal with. So the rapport with clients is
And I guess is there any in particular, is there anyone in particular you would want to work for that you haven't? Like a dream client or a brand or?
There's probably a couple of big ones overseas. Obviously the big ones like Nike and things, you don't really know what it's like to work for them until you actually work for them.
Yeah, true.
Sometimes they can be a nightmare to work for. The bigger they are, the more hoops you have to jump through, the more questions they ask before a shoot. Some of the little guys just go do it. We love what you do.
Yeah.
But I think for me, the adventure with products, if they wanted to start sending me to amazing places like Iceland and things, that's really a good dream client. Yeah. They love what I do, they're comfortable in what I do, and we want to go shoot it at an amazing location, so go shoot it. Yeah. I think that's a dream client.
Yeah, true. Yeah. A bit of freedom, but doing it for something that's interesting. When
a client gets full trust in what you do, I think that turns into a dream client, really. It's great.
Yeah, true.
Whether they sell bike shoes or wheels or chairs, whatever they do.
Yeah.
They're the dream clients.
Yeah, right. And what's do you think, the toughest shoots you've done, if you can think of any?
Some of the challenging, underwater's quite tough.
Oh, yeah.
I do, obviously triathlon has swimming. And I used to shoot some pool work, and we used to explore the underwater side of it. Obviously with pools, you need to light the whole scene, so flashes underwater is quite difficult.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to there are lots of technology that's coming along now that it's potential to shoot flash outside the pool to under the water, plus underwater lights as well. It's always fascinated me because it's really challenging conditions to shoot underwater. Yeah. Everything takes twice as long, everything's hard, you can't even see what you're looking at most of the time. But underwater is probably the most challenging. I've shot a fair bit of swimming and stuff underwater. I've actually put reflectors on the bottom of pools to bounce that light back up as the person swims past. But I'd say water and snow, I think. Okay. Snow's pretty challenging too. I was in Park City last year and it was like 20 below and you lug up two or three bags of equipment up the hill and you're in knee-deep snow.
Oh gosh.
And you're like, I'm hoping the shot's going to be worth it. And then you set up your lights and then you literally 20, 30, and then a light's not doing what you want it to do, so you've got to trudge through 10 metres of snow to get back over to that light. And then you come back and then you're like, oh no, it's not in the right spot, so you got to pick it up and move it. So this whole snowboard photographers and ski photographers, literally my hat goes off to them because it's freezing cold. You can't even feel your hands a lot of the time because you've got the gloves on and everything. And your batteries go dead twice as fast. It's quite frustrating with flash in the snow. But the results are worth it because not everybody does it. It's worth it.
And you obviously would have to stay pretty fit having to shoot all of this kind of stuff. Do you get on, when do you find time to do that, or do you go around riding with Sarah? Or
I do ride because I'm kind of lucky. She does 3 sports, so if I just try and do one of them, I can keep up.
True.
Sometimes. And I find riding as well quite part of the adventure because every time we go to a new town, like in Spain, we turned up there and it's like, oh, there's a big mountain, let's go right up it.
Yeah.
So we go right up it.
Yeah,
And then for me, I'm like scouting, I'm like looking around, okay, where's the sun, where this road's amazing, take some photos. So I do cycle and run a fair bit.
Oh, good.
But I find it really part of the scouting process. I mean, to drive to these places sometimes it's just it feels like work, but when you're riding to them, you're like, wow, this corner would look amazing at 6 a.m. Let's get out my app, have a look at it.
Yeah.
Right, the sun's going to come through here. This is where I want you. All right, let's come back in like a couple of days and shoot it. Something like that.
Yeah,
so,
true.
So cycling's quite, and you can see doing on 100k rides, you can see quite a bit. So even if it's quite fast, you can still sort of take location scouting photos, and it just really plans out the shoots as well. So it's part of the planning process.
Yeah, cool. All right, and do you have any goals for 2022? Like, what's next for you, do you think? 2022,
I've got a few shoots lined up for America right now. I'm trying to couple a few of them together. I really find traveling and shooting quite good at the moment. I've spent so much time doing it, I quite enjoy it.
Yeah.
And just trying to really cement myself into the triathlon scene at the really high level, I think, because I've shot a lot of different genres in many different products and all different things, but this is quite tough. There's 3 different sports. There's all infrastructure and products around that.
Yep.
And I really want to be like the guy that I want to be the go-to guy.
Yeah.
So each shoot I do, I have to be better than my last one. I have to produce better than what I've produced in the past. So yeah, just be better. Like just literally be better.
Okay. I mean, you got to set your goals as far as ahead as you need them, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people these days, cameras are everywhere. People always, creatives, the YouTube, all the platforms, everybody is a photographer. And if you're not producing better than what you produced last time or better than everybody else, there's a guy like me coming up behind you.
Yeah.
And there's a guy behind me coming up behind me that's better than me. So you've got to really, that's where the client relationships come into play. You've got to really be that person that they use and be confident and really produce what they want every time and push yourself as well. So you could be better. Just be better all the time if you can try to.
Just always be better.
So if you can produce that one amazing image that goes on their product page or their billboard or anything, then it's like, well, that's mine. I claim to that.
Yeah, cool.
And it's better than anything they had before.
And a pretty cool feeling to see.
Yeah, as well, yeah. When we go in and have meetings with clients now, that's like, oh, we love what you did last time. Let's keep it going. A lot of the ambassadorships that we have with Sarah, a lot of the sponsors are really stoked in what we're doing and they want to produce more, which is really good.
Yeah.
And I'm pushing for Sarah to get a lot of outside of triathlon sponsors, so like cars and insurance companies and things. So a huge part of my job is producing pictures and using the imagery that we create to be able to pitch to those brands and say, I want to work for you, or we want to get Sarah sponsored by you.
Yeah, okay.
This is what we do. This is how we do it. Does that work for your brand? Let's start the conversation. So that's a huge part of my job as well.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've hit time. But thanks so much for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
I just wanted to say quickly to everyone, don't forget to subscribe if you want to keep watching our channel. We've got a few things coming up. So next up on the couch is Kate Myers. So she's a surf, fashion and travel photographer. So yeah, subscribe and then you'll get those little notifications to come watch. But thanks again to Dale for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you next time.